we don't want to talk about Zach Wilson coming back to the Jets, but Houston against New York. We obviously know the Tank Dell injury. Does this mean that we're just going to be CJ Stroud, Nico Collins, and not much else in this offense?
It's kind of like, it's a real difficult week for it to be the first Nico Collins week to go up against the Jets, who allow a league low in fantasy points to opposing wide receivers who have been fantastic against the pass all year. But it matches, as you can see on screen there, the number 4 ranked passing offense against the number 4 ranked pass defense. So it comes down to which unit is stronger. And I do actually think Zach Wilson being back in the Jets starting lineup is better news than the backups. He averaged minus 5.2 completions over expected. The backups were averaging minus 12.4. So that probably keeps this game a little more alive than it could have been. I think that when you look at what CJ Stroud's doing, leading the league in passing yards, I think he's the first rookie to do that since Andrew Luck. And Nico Collins had 2 top 5 finishes back to back. That normally I don't like to stray away from the offensive side of things just because the defensive side sounds tough. I think you look at what Nico Collins is, he's a big player. I think that he's definitely got a height advantage over Sauce Gardner. I'm not so sure about DJ Reed. I'm sure he'd be able to tell me that. The Jets, they have done well, though. They've kept every wide receiver since week 6, apart from Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Khalil Shakir, to under 15 points. But, yeah, I mean, if Nico Collins can go out and get 15 points in this kind of tough matchup, I'd be fine with that. The running back situation, the Jets are a run funnel. They are not as good against the run as they are against the pass. They rank 14th against the run. Damian Pierce had a 57% opportunity share last week. It was the first time he was over 50% since week 5, and he averaged 2.75 yards per carry. It just isn't there. There was talk during the Texans bye week that he'd struggle to pick up this run scheme from the new offense, so perhaps they go back to Singletary. But Singletary, his smash games came against the Bengals and the Cardinals, 2 teams awful against the run. So it's by no means a sure thing that Singletary would come in and be any better. Dalton Schultz, if he plays, I'd be fine playing him. Brevin Jordan, we saw last week, slid straight into that role. The Jets allow a league high 0.6 touchdowns per game to tight end. And then on the Jets side, I mean, we can get through it quickly. Breece Hall sounds banged up, but if he plays, you play him. The Texans ranked 27th in DVOA versus running backs in the receiving game, which is an area where Breece has had success. Since week 6, he's averaged 5.1 receptions per game. And then Garrett Wilson, I mean, he was averaging 65 receiving yards in games with Zach Wilson compared to 47 without. And since week 10, the Texans have allowed 15-plus point games to Courtland Sutton, Tyler Boyd, Calvin Ridley, and Jamar Chase. This feels like a spot where Garrett Wilson could score 20, but you have to have a little bit of faith in Zach Wilson to do so.
Yeah, I think Zach Wilson's going to force the ball to him. You know, we've seen Alan Lazard has had issues with disciplinary and been benched, and they've got the 2 undrafted free agent rookies in Xavier Gibson and Jason Brownlee that are starting. So it feels like this is basically Garrett Wilson and nothing much. I think Breece Hall, the floor is quite impressive. He's on a decent run of, I think it's 9 consecutive games of scoring 10 fantasy points or more. The problem is that he's basically scoring 10, 10.5, 11 in those weeks. Like, there's not the ceiling games. So hopefully, you know, Zach Wilson is able to keep that extra person out of the box, push the ball downfield a little bit more than Tim Boyle and Trevor Siemian and all the other backups. And maybe we can get into a world where there's some fancy production. But I'll be honest, this is a game I'm just not touching. I think the Jets defense are going to strangle Nico Collins. I think he's going to struggle. And I just don't think the Jets are going to put up a lot of points. I wouldn't be shocked if this hits the under on that 33. I think it's going to be quite a tight one.